Hello and welcome to Bruffy's UAE Rugby Wrap-Up, Episode 11. This week we'll celebrate the ladies' finals winners, some Dubai Derbies and a dust-up in Doha. We've got a guest segment and then we wrap up Div 1, Div 2, looking at the tables and go through next week's games. Welcome to the show. All right. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's episode. We're going to dive straight in and celebrate the Abu Dhabi Harlequins women's team. They have broken records and they are the first team to have gone through winning every single sevens tournament of the season. So they were gone 6 from 6, and it's an unbelievable effort. Captain Chloe and I know the coach Hugo are so proud of their team and the work they've done this year. They had 3 teams in the tournament yesterday, so really well done to them. The Hurricanes have been really up there and been pestering them for the last 4 tournaments. I think the first 2, the finals were against the Phoenix, and then the Hurricanes were in the finals for the last 4 games. Hurricanes actually took a lead into the final, scoring a beautiful first try with a massive run from a tall, lanky winger. She went gun down past it, and then Quinn scored a try either side of half time before putting up a really good defensive effort to win it. So yeah, again, congratulations to Clodagh and her and the Harlequins amazing sevens team. Really good job. They've won 6 from 6, and they'll be heading into the 15s part of the year, where I know a few teams will join up and go against and probably try and take down the Quins from that angle. All right, so now we're going to move on to the West Asia Super Rugby. There was a couple of games on Friday night. The first one was the big Dubai Derby between the Dubai Hurricanes and the Dubai Dragons. That was at the sevens. The game was really tight. Caught it on FFP through the RCC streaming. So thank you for that stream. But it was a really topsy-turvy game. Both teams had a lot of opportunities, and we watched that momentum swing. The Hurricanes probably took the early lead, and then Dragons were playing catch-up, just making errors at the wrong time. It was kind of a bit of a reverse from them for the week before. They made the Quins do the same mistakes that they started making this week. The Hurricanes managed to hold on, and they got the win with 34-27. It was really close game, good game, and seeing some of the big players stand up for both teams was really important. Dragons probably needed to get that win to solidify their top 4 spot, because it's to let the Quins creep back in. The next game we are going to talk about, before we talk about it, we are going to welcome this week's guest. He is one of the premier referees in the country. We love to hate him and we hate to love him. It is Simon Dodd. So welcome to the show, Simon.
Cheers, Ali. Nice to be on.
Thank you for coming. Now, you refed 2 games this weekend, and the first of them was at Al Habtoor Polo Club between the Sharks and the Exiles. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, as assistant ref those 2 games. So referee was JP in the middle for Friday night at Al Habtoor. Really interesting game. Really, after we shooed the horses off, we got the game kicked off. Exiles very strong, dominant at set phase, but more pleasingly for UAE Rugby, their discipline is very strong, and they were going through the phases really, really meticulously. And that phase play, that discipline in how they're doing their rugby, just enabled them to score try after try against the Sharks. Now, the Sharks stayed in the contest for the whole 80 minutes. It was very pleasing to see the Sharks not capitulate, not give in, try and play rugby when they had the ball. And they themselves scored 2 or 3 tries on the counter, which was very good to see. But a good game for West Asia Super Rugby.
Yeah, that Exiles pack they're a big team with a big pack, and they are starting to play their own game. They looked infallible this season. They probably should have beaten Bahrain in their only loss. But it'll be a hard. They'll be a hard team to stop if they can keep their discipline together. Yeah, the word I got off the street was that Sharks got three really good counter-attacking tries, feeding off the scraps, and they really wanted to try and play their footy. Whereas the Exiles took the direct path, just with really strong carries, busting that game line, and really good awareness before they were going wide and scoring out wide after they'd done the hard work inside. So we've got Exiles. They took the Biscuits 52-19, and that gives them another bonus point win, and that keeps them in second place, chasing Bahrain for Bahrain's next slip up, which I believe might come soon. I don't know if you're allowed to say on that anything on that, Simon, but I think Bahrain haven't looked as good for the last few weeks, so Exiles are just waiting for that slip up or the return leg of that game.
Yeah, I mean, Bahrain over the last 3 or 4 weeks have won games, but not as convincingly as they have done in previous seasons. They're certainly fallible. If we can get teams, if there are teams against them that do everything that they want to do correctly 100% of the time, then that will hopefully or possibly could produce different results. Not hopefully, it may produce different results against Bahrain.
Yeah, but it's always good to see that competition between a couple of the bigger teams. Now, the other game from that you were a part of, and you were part of that refereeing team, you were AR, was Doha hosted Abu Dhabi Harlequins. It was in Doha. It looked very dusty. What was it like on the ground there?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, I think we felt the back end of that weather in Dubai and Abu Dhabi on Friday with the wind and the sand in the atmosphere, and Doha similarly, particularly windy on a sandy pitch. The game was interesting as a double header, so double points. I think Doha targeted the game to try and get their season back on track. And so for both teams, it was a little bit testy, is probably the right phrase, in terms of discipline, and in terms of wanting to get across the game line if you're carrying the ball, and as defence almost pushing up a little bit too quickly to close the space. And that led to a fair few team warnings and yellow cards for just being too keen in
Yeah,
defence.
and I mean, it was a critical game for both teams. Doha still winless. Abu Dhabi have been in close games, but just not getting the job done, and they had to come away with a double point win. A loss would have just ended their season. So they needed that bonus point win, but there was a lot of pressure and a lot of changes from both teams. I know Doha were missing their usual 10, who's a really good player. Their captain, he went down early and he didn't get to play the rest of the game. But Doha showed up wanting to play. I think the Quins showed up really nervous and were afraid to play and couldn't put phases together. I was very critical at home watching that on the stream as well. I was pulling what little hair I had out, just trying to get through that. But no, like the Quins scrum, obviously really dominant. That really kept them in the game. Anytime there was a knock on, anytime there was anything to do with the scrum, they were winning penalties.
Yeah, 100%.
There was a yellow card off. Was there a yellow card off the scrummaging?
Yeah, so I mean, Quins were saved by their set phase, really. They were nervous throughout the entire 80 minutes. Knowing, I've been here 7 years, knowing Quins as I do. They were very nervous. It was a bit of a mix and match, first 15, second 15 type fixture, so disjointed. Tried to put structure on it, but were challenged, particularly in the centres. Forwards were getting go forward ball, no problem at all. And Doha in the past few seasons have been able to go backwards at set phase at scrum time legally. They were able to always sort of take the pressure, and when they've got their ball, channel A straight out for the 8 feet and away we go. Yesterday, that was less in evident, leading to 2 penalty tries for Quins, which effectively won them the game. One of the first penalty try, the whole of Doha 8 sort of bailed out, so it was very challenging to follow that up with the yellow card. We're
Yeah,
never going to pick one player. But in the second penalty try, it was very clearly the loose head bailing out of Doha, and that was a slightly easier yellow card decision.
Now, what we talk about, I know there are a lot of other cards. I found this season that scrum cards are less popular or happening a lot less. We've seen, from my point of view, a few teams dominating scrums, but and winning lots of penalties, but the cards being not as quick as maybe the international scene. For sure that they're not willing to give out those cards very quick. Would you agree with that or disagree with that?
I probably neither agree nor disagree. I think the challenge we have at set phase is that we want ball in, ball out. We want the ball in play time to be longer. That's quite a key driver of officiating, not just in the UAE but across the world. We want the ball in play longer. If the ball's at 8 feet, we'd rather it just play away. And you saw that
Yeah,
yesterday with Nika and the England game and Matt Carley in the other game. The ball's at 8 feet, we'll play away and we'll have a quiet word with the prop who's involved on the way to the next line out, the way to the next scrum. Um, the challenge we've got in this part of the world is if we do yellow card a front row, follow the process and yellow card a front row, we're going to get on a second 15 front row. So we're not solving the problem, we're making the problem worse in likely. So when we absolutely have to yellow card a front row, so in Doha yesterday, for example, with the loose head, then we will. There's no fear factor in doing that. But
yeah.
in just brandishing a yellow card earlier, it's not solving the problem of either stability or early push or going up, down, or side to side. So
Yeah,
we're
but
just compounding the issue.
yeah, and then doesn't so is the counter argument to that you're probably punishing the team who's probably getting all those penalties? Because I know if we gave away four offsides or four holding on penalties or something like that, the yellow card would generally come out a bit quicker, and that's to the attacking team advantage. If the scrum's that good, should we not be rewarding that team a little bit more as well?
We are rewarding them with the penalties. So the
Yeah,
penalties, so the reward is there. And if not penalty, penalty advantage. And what you will see, will have seen this season and will continue to see this season, is lots of advantages accrued to try time. So
yeah,
referees have the offence in the head or have given the advantage. But typically, and I would say typically, I would say probably, I'm not going to put a number on it, but often that advantage accrues to try time. So as a match official and as a spectator, I would rather the ball be in play and a try be scored than the referee blow a whistle, brandish a yellow card, and we start again.
yeah.
So while your reflection as a front rower yourself, as a frustrated 10, as you are, um, the it may be perceived that we're not rewarding the dominance, and it's up to the team that are less dominant to sort themselves out. I think we've got the balance right.
Happy to ask because it's all
Yeah, yeah.
had a few conversations with it about people, and we're going to sting you with the hard ones today because that's what we've got you on. But overall, yeah, like we'll wrap up that game. So the score was 33-20 in the end. As you said, Quinn's got a couple of penalty tries due to that dominant scrum. They scored within the first like minute of the game, and I thought, oh, Doha's in trouble here. But that was the most phases the Quins put together throughout the day. Doha were just a bit unstructured. Guys flying in, probably a few players trying to do too much to maybe compensate for players they don't trust or things like that. But it was, and losing their captain early probably took the wind out of
Yeah.
their sails.
I mean, yeah,
I did,
sorry,
yeah,
just before just before you wrap up on that, I mean,
yeah,
the eight Doha and the two Doha were working at 120%. They lost Torres, the captain, sort of in the first 4 minutes after Quinn scored their try. So having their non-starting 10, Torres goes, 8 and 2 were working at 120%. And it effectively showed in the last 20 minutes of the game.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, credit to Doha, they put it up. They Sean Stevens threw a terrible intercept try. That gave Doha a really good 20-13 lead, and it was definitely I like to say butt clenching time for the Quins team and anybody supporting at the time. It was I think the words we chose after the game wrap up was phew. So that was good pressure. All right, so we've wrapped up the Prem for the moment. I've got a few questions for you. Now, I think refereeing, before we start, I think you guys are amazing. As much as I like to tell you you're not on the weekends, you guys do an amazing job, and it is a thankless task. We can't do it without you. What keeps you going? What keeps referees in the game?
So it's good. I mean, yeah, no referee, no game, really. That's the thing. But we as a match officiating team across the UAE, we've got nearly 50 now, sort of accredited match officials. And I think what drives the majority of us is we used to play to a relatively high level. And to be honest, match officiating is the second best seat in the house behind playing. So to continue our love and our passion for the game, and the intricacies of the game, without actually putting on playing colours, refereeing and match officiating is the next best thing, and that helps us in the dark times when we've got to go out and do our fitness training and run our fitness tests, when we're reviewing fixtures and reviewing games and being critical of ourselves, and the learning process that goes with that. Really helps drive standards and drive quality going forward. But mainly, we just love the game, and that's why we do it.
Understand that you guys love the game probably more than everyone else, and I do say that knowing that we cannot have the game without you, and the amount of grief you guys cop at times, and I definitely like to partake in that at times. Is amazing, but no, we can't play without you. While we talk about the grief you cop, I tend I tend to try not to. I'm very careful about the words I choose normally when I'm yelling things out. I make sure it's not personal. I make sure it's all about the game. How do you find that line between what is abuse and what is just general advice or passion?
So, I mean, it's a perennial question. I mean, we in the UAE and back in the UK and back in Oz and New Zealand, South Africa, basically across the world, people are involved in the game because they love the game. And if you're a coach and you're a non-playing coach, as in you're not still playing, you're just a coach, not just a coach, important job. You are invested in your team, and you're invested in the results of your team, and you're invested in the players of your team. And we as match officials value that passion and value that investment. In the heat of battle, which I think is what we're talking about here, it is clear to us as match officials where there'll be frustrations from either side, either sets of coaches, either sets of players, and there is always a fine line between passion and investment of that passion and match official abuse. Now we've seen this season we've had a few red cards for match official abuse, and typically and we as the UAE Rugby Federation and the RCC and the match officials will support our match officials 100% against any sort of match official abuse, and I'm sure you would too.
Yeah,
Those situations are typically where a coach and or player have continued and continued and continued and directed things specifically at the referee. So it's at the referee. It's not at a decision. It's not at a player. It's at the referee, and a little bit like a dog with a bone, they've not let it go, and they've continued and continued and
and then
continued. And the match
yeah,
official would have used the tools in their toolkit to try and go the other way,
de-escalate the situation. Yeah,
armor, mitigate, calm, reset. But the coach and or player has continued and continued and continued. So our management tools, our staircase of sanction, we've used our voice, we've maybe given a penalty. You're still doing it. Okay, we probably need to give a yellow card, but you're a coach. You're still doing it. Well, we'll have to send you away from the field, which nobody really wants to do. But there are standards in the game of rugby that we must uphold, and that's
and,
really
and it,
important.
yeah, I fully agree with that. When you look at other sports and the way referees are treated, I think baseball and football are probably the two I see where like there's literal players and coaches getting up in referees, umpires' faces and pushing them, and like I just find it disgraceful because you're an educator as well. When our kids see that, they kids see that it's okay to do. For me, that's the biggest part of, and one of the biggest parts about rugby. Why we love the game so much is that it's got to be respectful at the end of the day. I know I've definitely done my fair share of screaming on the sideline, but straight after the game, I'll come and talk to you guys in a normal calm tone. I'm not coaching this year, so I'm much better at not doing it. But yeah, it's really important that we see that respect level, and that's what makes rugby rugby. It distinguishes us from other sports, and we need to keep those lines.
Absolutely. And just to sort of tie off this particular point, referees, particularly at West Asia Super Rugby, are probably more hard on themselves than coaches or players. When we go through our review processes, literally as we're talking now, two referees have just sent me their game reviews and clipped up, and then we'll have a dialogue about it. Referees are very analytical and critical of each decision that they're making to make sure that our pictures and processes are correct. So it can be a misnomer that referees just referee the game and leave and don't do anything and don't care if you're upset and don't care about the game. I think it's almost completely the other way around. We care passionately about the standards in our game, and we want to maintain and drive forward those standards, not just for the senior rugby, but for 1916s, women's tournaments, and all of the rugby in the West Asia region.
Yeah, and no referee wants to be the reason the game is won or lost or feel like that. You guys are just playing by, and I'm going to say laws because I know about the rules. Yeah, just knowing that you guys are there doing your best. Obviously, we see the players make mistakes. Referees can make mistakes. They're not infallible, but they will do that. Everybody's doing their best, and we need everyone to understand that.
100%.
All right. Now, there's been some new rules introduced in February. I saw one in play in a Div 1 game for Barrel House and Quins twos. I was a bit taken aback by it. They were using the scrum half law a bit differently. They had on a scrum, they had their number 9 basically in line or just behind the channel, but about 20, 30 meters into the defensive line. And I thought that was an unusual thing. And I'm not sure if it's allowed because I don't fully understand the new laws. How is that going to affect our game if we're now allowing the extra players out in the defensive line when we're trying to open up the game?
Well, I mean, if we'll take a step back from that one in particular and just look more globally at what World Rugby are trying to do, and I mentioned it previously, we as match officials and the World Rugby who run the game are looking for more ball in play time, better space, better speed, and better safety. Now, the safety aspect was taken care of 2 seasons ago when we brought in the tackle height. So tackle height, so below sternum, and so no seatbelts and all of those, and that increases safety of our players going forward. And the head contact process from 2 seasons ago that was developed and has now embedded. What we're looking for, or what World Rugby are aiming for, is more ball in play time. So typically, when I was playing rugby in the 90s and the 2000s, we maybe have 30 minutes of ball in play time in an 80-minute fixture. We're looking to push towards 45, 50 minutes of actual live rugby in an 80-minute slot. How we can get more ball in play time and clean up certain messy areas, the scrum being one of those. The scrum half, the defending scrum half, can no longer go around the scrum with the ball of the offside line and go into the pocket between flanker and 8 and put pressure on the attacking scrum half when they're delivering the pass or make the tackle on the 8 pick. Now, what it does is allow for competition in the front row, no problem. But once the ball is won, there is more protection of the 9. Therefore, we get ball delivered more effectively. Therefore, the ball is in play more often. The same is true at tackle, post tackle. We can't have players going across the post tackle and grabbing the 9, which we did have last season, but it's just been more codified this season. And we can't have players standing onside behind their back foot, but blocking somebody coming to charge a kick, or someone's coming to put on the end.
Well, I always thought that was obstruction because by rights you're going behind another player. That was just my belief on it, that
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
blocking a defender. So
but I mean, it isn't, or it wasn't before because you were
yeah,
onside because you were behind your hindmost feet and you weren't moving to stop, you weren't changing lanes to stop someone running
yeah.
through. You were just standing
Oh
there
no,
almost like
it
an
just it
NFL
was
blocker.
always one of those things that looked funny to me.
For sure.
One of the things I'm glad about is the lineouts that if the team is not competing, straight doesn't matter anymore. Well, not does it doesn't matter, but it's not being pulled up as much because I think if a team is not competing, then they don't deserve anything from the lineout if they're
Correct.
going to stay down.
And to be fair, I would say us in the UAE and the 7 years I've been here and the 15 years I officiated back in the UK, we sort of did that anyway. Because the idea of the not straight is to give reward to the defending side who's trying to get the ball. But if you're not
Yeah,
trying to get the ball, why am I rewarding you with a scrum? So you haven't earned the reward. So this has just now been codified that there's more leniency in the straightness of the throw if the defending side isn't putting a pod up to challenge.
yeah, absolutely, and that's one I'm definitely in. I'm actually in favour of all the new laws. Is there any word on the 20-minute red card and whether that's coming to the UAE or not? Any
So
as of yet?
in the World Rugby Council meeting that happened pre-Christmas, the 20-minute red card wasn't brought forward. But it'll be under review. So I think the Stellenbosch tournament down in South Africa is a hotbed of law development. So that's
Yep.
utilised down there. I'd imagine it'll be revisited. As my own personal opinion, I'm not overly a fan of it, but because a red card's a red card's a red card. I understand the rationale of, say, Bruffy, you getting a red and you going off for 20 minutes, so you're down to 14 for 20 minutes, but then we get a replacement on, so it's a fairer competition for the remainder of the game. I understand the rationale. I need to see it work in action, I think, before
Yeah, for
we
me, it's the big difference is like I think would be intent for foul play for the red cards for me. Like, I mean, if I went up and punched someone in the face, my team and I deserve not to be replaced at all.
correct. But
However, if I
that
if
Bruffy,
someone stepped inside me and I didn't lower my tackle height enough because I'm not fast enough, and we clashed heads, and then I got my red card through that, where it is my fault, but I'm not skilled enough to do it. I think it's
yeah,
very harsh, and that's just is
for
what it is at
sure.
one of
But,
those stages.
there is still the permanent red card.
Yeah,
So
which
I
is,
can so if you do punch someone in the face, we can permanently remove you from the field and not replace you.
and I think that's what
The other
will
one is the
maybe help
20
the
one
rules a
as
little
well
bit.
on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, All right, so we've talked about some of the harder stuff. Let's get a little bit lighter now. So if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
So it's a good question, Bruffy. And I know we chatted earlier, and this is a rugby podcast, but we're talking about anyone. And as you know, I'm a
Yeah,
teacher and I'm a science teacher. So someone who I'd like to have a long meal with a long set of rehydration is someone called Richard Feynman, who hopefully some of your listeners will know is a scientist from America, physicist from America.
I
Sort
know
of
him from The Big Bang Theory.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, and you can catch some of his lectures are online and all of that. But he is a very interesting character. Very interesting
Yeah,
character. Involved fingers in lots of different pies. Was involved in many different things. And really interesting. So, I'd have a nice steak dinner and lots of red flavored hydration.
yeah. All right. All right. It's time to get you in a bit of trouble in your locker room. I do this with the players. So we're going to do the referee version. So the player one is start one, bench one, drop one. I'll give you three people, but you can choose them as the main ref, one AR, and the other one maybe get a game next week. Okay.
Okay.
So the first three guys I'm going to give you now. We'll go with Tony, Craig, and Eugene, all the UAE refs.
So I'd probably start Tony. Tonas in the middle. Absolutely legend of a referee. Knows the sides inside and out. Knows his game inside and out. And has a laugh with it as well. I'd have Eugene as AR because what we want in our ears is an Irish running commentary coming in our ears all the time, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'll have Craigo bringing in the hydration at halftime.
Awesome. All right, We'll do one more with you. We'll go with a few of the younger lads now. We've got JP, JP Clemens, James Fairbairn, and Yako DeVitt. So we've got three of the current constant Prem refs.
What a triumvirate you've picked there. What a triumvirate. So all three of them have performed magnificently this season, not only in the middle, but in their review process and the conversations, high quality conversations we're having off the field. Notice I'm delaying the decision making here. So at the moment, I would probably put Yaku in the middle. I'd have James as AR1 and JP wouldn't be bringing the water, it'd be AR2. And that would be a high quality team of three. Probably one of the better teams of three that you'd get across the world.
Unfortunately, JP was dropped because we can't have two.
Oh, oh my God. Hey, look, I've got one South African in the middle, one South African dropped. You know, that's balance. That's balance.
Balance, yeah. No, it's all right. All right. That's all we've got time for with our guest for Simon. Thank you so much for coming in and giving us that insight from the referee's perspective. It's been an honour having you on, so thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Pleasure as always, and hopefully either me or one of my colleagues will join you in future podcasts to answer some more of your questions. Absolute pleasure,
Absolutely.
mate. Take care.
All right. Thank you, mate. Bye-bye. All right. So that was Simon Dodd, one of the constant referees in the UAE. Does a lot of the Prem and Div 1 stuff. He's a very insightful man and knows the laws and not the rules, as I always like to say. What about the rules? And he goes, they're laws. So no, it's good to have him on. But all right, so we're going to wrap up the rest of the games now. We had Div 1, Barrel House took down the Quins in Abu Dhabi on Friday night. The commentary team was amazing there, I've got to say. But Barrel House won that in the first half. Quins couldn't put more than two phases together, so Barrel House got that 20-13. Tigers put the Exiles to the sword, but the game was called off about 20 minutes early because the Exiles were down to 12, which is tough from their squad. I'm not sure what happened with numbers and stuff there, but they didn't make it. So Tigers took that 36-7, but it was called off early. And Alain got the chocolates over their Dragons. It was a close game in parts, and then Alain seemed to be able to score just that few more times. They won 43-17. And that was also streamed on the RCC YouTube channel. All right. In Div 2, we'll stay in Alain. They beat the Dragons again. So their Alain 2s beat Dragons 3s in a high scoring game. It was 40-35. And the Hurricanes also beat the Tigers 2. So the Hurricanes 3s beat the Tigers 2s. And that was 34-22. The Hurricanes do have a little bit of an advantage at the moment with Dylan Armitage, the former England international, playing for them. He's only 41, so he's not been out of the game too long. So he's a very handy pickup for the Vets / Div 2 team. All right. So, so those were all the games. Obviously, the Sharjah had a forfeit win. Quins didn't have the numbers for three teams, all in different locations this week. And Shaheen also had a forfeit win from the Sharks. I think a few of those teams are starting to do that now, as Shaheen seemed to be very dominant in that league, and teams don't want to put up their boys. So we'll get through that. Okay, so that was the Div 2 wrap up. Before we look at the ladders, let's look at what has been awesome or a bit rough this week.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh no, that's pretty rough. Come on.
All right, so let's look at the awesome for the week first. Just the quality of rugby that was between the Canes and the Dragons in a tight knit game. It's good to see a really tightly contested West Asia Prem game. Some of them have been blown out, so that was good. The Exiles stay in the awesome with their dominant win. Alain at home, they get a shout out this week. They had 2 wins in their first back-to-back games that they've hosted in a long time. That involve both their teams. The Quins get back on the winners list this week, and their scrum gets a massive shout out. So well done to the front row and forward packs of the Quins. Couple of pushover penalties or penalty tries there. So that's the good. Now we'll look at the rough. So that's pretty rough. Starts with Doha. They had a good lead, 20-13. They had all the momentum, just couldn't get the job done, and they stay on 0 wins. So that's pretty harsh. Sean Stevens, it was a real rough pass there with that big intercept try being given away, and then Doha getting the easy 7 points. The Quins Div 1 team actually get a bit of that's pretty rough shout out as well. They could not get past the third phase for most of the game. Just too much trying to score off first 2 or not holding onto the ball. It wasn't good enough. And just another week where there's been a lot of cards. Teams just have to lift their discipline. Stop the chat. Just get on with the game and stop getting yourselves in trouble. Tyler, you almost got in my rough list with that tip tackle this week. But the winner of that's pretty rough or pretty rough will actually go to the Doha captain, Martin Torres. He was actually supposed to be the guest this week, but about 3 or 4 minutes into the game, very first play, managed to shatter his cheekbone and eye socket. So we wish you the best in surgery, and you are the winner of That's Pretty Bruff this week. All right, so that's all on the bruff. We're about to have a look at the ladders.
All right. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, no, that's pretty rough. Come on.
Okay, let's look at the West Asia Premiership. The ladder hasn't had a lot of changes, but the Quins move up to 4th spot with their double-header bonus point win. Bahrain remains on top with that 33 points. Dubai Exiles are coming in hot. They're only 2 points behind with all their bonus points. They got another one this weekend. Hurricanes stay 3rd. And the Dragons, Sharks, and Doha round at the bottom of that list. Dragons will be kicking themselves not getting the win on the weekend to cement 4th spot. Okay, so that's the Prem in Div 1. We can see that Alain is getting it done. Alain, Barrel House, and the Exiles are all tied on 5 wins and 2 losses. But Alain's bonus points have got 9 bonus points so far, holding up the top of the ladder. Barrel House in 2nd. Exiles 3rd, with the Quins holding 4th place. Dubai Tigers had another win, so they're shooting up the ladder, only 1 point behind Abu Dhabi. Then we've got Bahrain, the Dragons, Hurricanes, and Sharks still winless there. So that is the Div 1 table as we see it. And in Div 2, the couple of forfeits leave the top 2 teams in first place. So UAE Shaheen and Sharjah Wanderers both got 40-point bonus point wins. So they stay up the top of the table. Hurricanes have made their way up to 3rd, and Abu Dhabi Harlequins are in 4th place, like in all 3 grades. So at least they're consistent. Dubai Tigers are coming through. Alain with a big win have started creeping up that ladder as well. Barrel House there, and then 7 and 8 are Dubai Dragons and Dubai Sharks, both sitting on a win apiece. It is a tightly contested league, this one, apart from the Shaheen getting it done. All right, so that is our games for the week. Next week, there are only 2 senior games. Dubai Sharks host the Dubai Hurricanes at Al Bahab Tour in both the Prem and Div 1. So those are the only 2 games next week. So that's it from the show today. Thanks again for listening. Thank you to our guest, Simon Dodd. I'd also like to thank grad from FFP Media. He's actually jumped on board to help produce this episode. And he also does a lot of the filming and stuff for the RCC YouTube. Thank you for that. Thank you again for everybody on the show. And Masalama, have a good day.